Data validation is a clever way of stopping you making avoidable errors. So, for example, in my mark book here, I've got the test score that I had once and the end of year test out of 100. Both tests are out of 100. And I want to make sure that when I do put those scores in, that I don't accidentally do this. Finger slips and someone puts in 110, or if someone has a real slip, puts in something like that. Now, because spreadsheets just take the values that you give them, it sees no problem with that because we haven't told it that these cannot be bigger than 100. Now, human eye, I could probably sort these out and spot them quite quickly, especially the 1,000. But if I was doing a whole page of data, this was going on for several hundred rows, or if I had big formulas based on finding averages, I mean, think what a score of 1,000 would do to an average for that test score. It may be harder to spot them, and again, you're wasting time. So what I can do, I'm going to get rid of those values, is I can have a tool called data validation. So I'm going to click on the range I want. I've highlighted what I'm interested in, the section. I could do the whole column if I wanted, but I'll just do the section for this example. And I'm going to go to data. I'm going to go down to data validation, which is listing there. Brings up this that looks quite scary at first, but ignore that, we'll work through it. Cell range, so it's sheet 1, yep, I'm on my first page, and it's G2 to G9, yep, those are the cells I'm interested in. Now, criteria means that I can give it set options. The one I'm actually interested here is numbers because it's going to be numerical. So I want it to be a number between 0 and 100. It's already suggested that to me. It's thinking what it's read. So it's giving me those as options. I've got other things as well. I could say that it had to be less than or equal to 100. That's an equally good option. They will all do the same thing. It's just different ways of getting there. I mean, the precision and the exact language depends on exactly how you want to do it. On invalid data, I could either give us a warning, are you sure? Or I could give it a reject input. Now, because this is pretty cut and dry, it's a numerical value, I'm going to go for reject. So if it's less over 100, it will just reject it. It won't let me put that in it. Appearance just means that they'll get a little comment box appearing just to remind people. Now, if you're doing the spreadsheet for other people, it's a collaborative document, or if you're doing it a long way in advance, that's probably worth putting on. And you can just even choose the message that it will be. So enter a number less than, I might just make that a bit shorter, say 100 max, please. And now I'll hit save. So the advantage of this now is if I bring my mouse over these columns and click in one of these cells, a little message pops up telling me that 100 is the max score. So I'm going to put in 100. That's fine. It lets me move on. So for the next one, I'm going to put in 110. Accidental slip of the finger when I was typing it in. So I'm going to hit enter. And it tells me there was a problem. 100 max, please. It won't let me do anything above that. See, that's my little error message that I decided I wanted to have. It's not registered as 110. It won't put it in. So it protects the data and makes sure I can't do anything wrong. Again, let's just try and beat it again. Let's try 1,000. No, it tells me there's a problem. It almost looks like an error message for people. So that's a really good way of protecting my data. There was another option in there as well, which is really useful. And it was the pass-fail or the true-false. So I'm going to put a pass column there. Now, I could do this as yes, no's, or trues and false, or y's and n's like I've done for my vulnerables. But data validation lets me do something else as well. If I go in here and I go data validation, one of my options after number was tick box. And all this did, if I click save, it brings me up a tick box at the end. And if I tick it, they've passed. It's like a check mark. So Darth Vader, he scored 100 on the test. Has he passed the year group? Absolutely he has. It automatically fills that value to true. You see these values here that are unticked, it returns them as false. That is really useful if you're wanting a true-false return, especially useful if you're going to build formulas that have true-false outcomes as well. So that's just something worth keeping in your mind for later on if you want to use it. And if you've got a simple yes-no question, it's quite a nice way to do it. Compare it to the vulnerables over here with the Ys and the blanks. That looks a little bit more efficient, would work nicely for registers. Other advantage of data validation, I've got the on my header at the top, it's in my top row, it's saying the score's out of 100. I could now lose that bit of information because when I hover my mouse there, I'd find out that as well. It just helps tidy up my spreadsheet, and also it keeps it just looking a bit more professional level. Again, I could put data validation on these saying it had to be a letter value. I could put the validation on these saying it had to be dark or light, which might cause problems for certain characters in between. But there's lots of different things I can do with it. It can force the users to make sure that they're filling it in the same way and that you're getting consistent data, which when you're looking at large amounts of data or you're looking at or using formulas, it is really, really important. So give it a go if that's what you're doing with your data, or just try it out and see if it keeps your record keeping a bit tidier.